Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Markets with Morning Joe. I am your host, Joe, and it is Sunday morning, about 10 minutes of 9. It's March 9th, and we had a wild, wild week this past week. And the last couple of weeks really have been incredibly wild, but um, actually it's been amazing. It's been very fun, very very technically uh, interesting to say the least. So markets have been trending down, and I would say probably trending is not the right word. I would say collapsing is more like it. These last few weeks. So we're going to start with the S&P 500. You can see that it topped out February 19th. And, for a long time, we weren't sure what the hell was going to happen, if the markets were going to go higher or lower. It looked like it was going to go higher. Everybody was expecting to continue further to the upside. It really looked like a bullish consolidation after, a long run up, but markets took a turn for the worse. And so, without getting into um, details about everything that Trump is doing, I'm just going to talk about the technicals. So, the last 3 weeks have been down, and you see my trend lines here. The market first broke this trend line of support. Second week, pretty much broke right through this trend line, went all the way down, to 58.27 pretty much, and then made its move higher last week, and last week just was like a run down the whole week up until really Friday morning after 12:30 when the Jay Powell, chairman of the Fed, spoke, and the markets kind of took a sigh of relief and came all the way back. However, closed still below this trend line. All right, so this trend line that I have here is from the lows back in November, touching the lows in December and January, right? So that was a weak close. If it was a strong close, it would have closed above the trend line here, and I would say that okay, we have a good chance of coming higher, which we still have a good chance of going higher, at least a counter trend bounce. But if you take a look, you see where this closed right here, the bottom of this body right here, that closed exactly at 5770.19. It closed lower than this green bar, okay? This green bar here, not only did it close lower than the body, but it closed right below the wick, right? So you see that dotted red line? It literally is right below that the wick on that green candle. So this low, this whole week, this is a weekly chart. That body closed at 59.9665. This one here closed at 57.70. Okay, so this closed lower than that, which means that leaves a window of opportunity to go make more lows, to continue lower from here. Now, it hasn't closed below, this green bar. This is still a very strong green bar. There's a lot of support right here. It went below it on an intraday basis, all right? So if I go on a daily chart, it definitely went below it. But you see all this support right here. So we're sitting on top of a lot of support here. We went into a 50-day moving average on the weekly chart. Um, so if I go back to the daily, you can see, there's a lot of support right here. Okay, so um, you know, however, like I said, it closed right below this trend line that I have. So there's definitely room for more downside. It's possible we can get a leg up, maybe into right here, 58.60 area. There's this is kind of like some resistance in this area right here. It's going to take a lot of power to get back above that. If it does, I don't think it's going to stay above that very long. Maybe intraday, maybe a day or two. I don't know, but it's coming into a lot of resistance right here in the upper 5,900 area. So 5,980, maybe 6,000. But this trend line here, now this is all resistance, okay? And if you measure from the top right here, 61.47 down to about where these 3 days kind of fell, right? 58.60, for example. So from 61.45 to 58.58. So that's 150, 250, if I'm not mistaken. I need a calculator. 250 points off of here, 59.88. 250 points off of 59.88, 59.88. So that's 57.30, right? We kind of crossed below that already on Friday's low. So we kind of satisfied that for now. So it's possible, this coming week, we go a little bit higher and see what happens. But I would suspect that we're going to have some consolidation, possibly, maybe a little bit of consolidation either sideways, maybe upwards. But I think probably it's going to fall back even lower. We'll see what happens. Obviously I can't predict the future. Markets are very sensitive to what's going on with the tariffs and all that stuff. So there's a lot happening in the world. So that's the spiders. Let's go to the NASDAQ. So tech is basically the reason why the markets sold off so much. The big mega cap stocks have been getting hammered. And you know what? It's about fucking time. That's my opinion, because they've been going up non-stop for the last 2.5 years, and it's sickening how much money was condensed into 7 or so stocks. But hey, that's my opinion, anyways. So on a daily basis, they put in a bottoming tail, right? This candle here on Friday, this was a bottoming tail. Similar to the one on Bitcoin last week, when it closed at like 78 or 79,000. But we'll get to Bitcoin soon, and I said that was a temporary bottom for as a daily basis. So I expect that to make a lower low, but we'll get to Bitcoin. So Nasdaq, okay, it's come down lower. So this could definitely bounce again. Basically the market is the tech for the most part. It's a huge portion of the market. So, it could definitely bounce up a little bit for this coming week. But I would suspect it to continue down further. It's got a huge portion in the S&P. So, what happens in tech is going to happen with the spiders. Money is definitely rotating into other sectors. But I think as a whole, I think the market will go probably lower. So we'll see what happens with all the news. But where this closed, if you look closely, this closed right at the pivot low from Thursday. Okay, so yeah, it went down quite a bit, but it made a huge rally back up intraday in the afternoon. But it closed right here, so there's still a lot of resistance here. If I look at a weekly chart, it's similar to the spiders where it closed lower than the previous week. You see that? Way lower than the previous week, but it closed at the 50-day, right above the 50-day moving average. So, this definitely has, some wiggle room, maybe to trade a little bit up and down, but I think, we'll see. I think it's going lower. Hard to tell really, but again, it all depends on what happens with Trump. Sorry about the lag. You can see that I think really tech topped out back in December. And the last January and February was just a lot of price action up and down, getting those last minute people to buy in, and tricking everybody thinking that the market was going to go higher. And a lot of people really, I mean, I follow a lot of smart people online that are in the markets, and really a lot of people thought that Trump was going to push the markets higher because that's what he likes to do. But this, but I think he's doing the reverse. I'm beginning to think that he's trying to force a recession, and which would cause the Fed to cut interest rates, which would help, mortgage rates, real estate, both commercial and residential, right? I'll get to that later, maybe in another video. So let's talk about gold and silver have been holding up pretty strong. Although I mentioned in a couple of videos ago that gold looked like it topped out. Let me see here. I want to go to gold futures. Why is there such a lag, man? No, maybe it was on a monthly. Gold futures on a monthly. No, maybe not. Maybe it was in a daily. Huh, that's weird. No. Yeah, gold futures. Why didn't I click on gold futures? All right, gold futures. Yeah, so it was a monthly. Yeah, so last month, I believe gold topped out. It had a good run, this past week. So if it goes above this, this high right here, then obviously we're going higher. But I think we'll probably see gold consolidate a little bit further down into the $2,700 range. Last week it went higher because it's the rest of the market sold off. So we'll see what happens. If gold sells off, I don't think it's gonna be a huge sell-off. And silver is sitting pretty. It's holding up very well. It closed higher last week, so it closed above this red body. It closed above, this last 3 weeks ago. But it's still got some resistance here. But it's sitting right on top of this pivot high, so that's good. That's a good sign for silver. This can continue to consolidate, but I believe this is going to continue to go higher sooner than later. Now, let's talk about Bitcoin. Actually, hold on. Let me get into the semiconductors. Pretty much similar to the Qs, the NASDAQ, because, you've got NVIDIA and some of the other big semiconductor names, but they're all getting hammered, right? So anything technology related is getting hammered. I suspect this is still going to go further down. So this is a weekly chart. I mentioned that measured move from this high to 83 down to here, 283 points. 83 points from here. I believe this is going into the $190 range, right? So that would take it like right here down to this green bar low right here. But if it continues to consolidate after that, then it's got lower to go. So we'll see what happens. And everything, all the mega caps. I'm not going to get into all the mega caps, but they're all getting chopped up. I might get into a couple of them maybe if I have time. But Bitcoin, let's talk about Bitcoin. It trades obviously 24/7. So let's go to a daily chart. I told you guys last week after Trump's, last Sunday when Trump announced that post, about the reserve, it obviously rallied off of that, and then it sold off the next day, and then it had a counter trend rally. It bounced into this trend line right above the 20-day moving average. I have this trend line, my own trend line, right above these highs. Okay, and that was my first line of support, resistance, and I had a bigger trend line here from the previous highs. Okay. So this is an even bigger line in the sand, bigger resistance, and right above that is 50-day moving average. So I didn't think Bitcoin was going to go any higher than that. I told you guys if it rallies, it's not going to go higher than 95, 96, 97,000. I said if it goes up there, that's your last chance to take the money, get out with some profits before it goes lower, and that's exactly what's happening. The White House Bitcoin crypto summit, whatever, happened on Friday, and it was a sell the news event. Pretty much, that's kind of what I suspected was going to happen, but I was open to, possibly going higher. I mean, anything can happen, right? But based on the chart, I didn't really have a lot of conviction that Bitcoin was going to go higher. Okay. And if it wasn't going to go higher then, guess what, guys? It's not going higher now. All right. In fact, it's been selling off. And if I draw a trend line from this pivot low from last week along to this pivot low, right? And basically the last three lows. So on Friday, 2 weeks ago, and then Tuesday last week, and then this pivot low on Friday as well, right? You have a triangle here. I believe I mentioned that in my last video. There was a triangle forming, okay? It broke below this trend line, which means this is going to go lower, right? So now the next move down is going to be into the low 80s, 81,000, and then it's going to come down into 78,000, and it's probably going to continue to go lower, okay? Because all of this move here is to the downside, right? So from 108, 109 down to 82, possibly even down to here, 78. So that's even better. I would say 30,000, right? So 109 down to 78. What's that? 30K? Yeah, about 30K, 31K. 31K from here, this green bar high right here. 30K from here, 65,000. So if I look out further, and let me do a weekly chart. You see I have a bunch of trend lines here, right? So first of all, this trend line support here above all of these pivot highs pretty much takes it into the $67,000 range. Now I have another trend line. Let's start with this one here from the lows back in September, right? So this pivot low here is touching this pivot low here in August, along with this pivot low here in September. This trend line kind of works its way up, and it crosses this upper support trend line. So right in the middle somewhere, 67, right? Which I've been saying 68,000 all along, guys. But it could possibly go lower, So Bitcoin, collapses down into the mid 60s doesn't mean it's going to instantly. It'll definitely bounce, but it'll bounce and come back down. It's possible we can go lower into the lower 60s. And if it breaks below that, then it's going back down into the mid 50s, all right, and possibly lower. So we'll see what happens. That's my take on Bitcoin. And let's talk about Palantir and Meta and a couple of other high flyers. Fuck, I only have 2.5 minutes. Palantir on a weekly basis. Let's go to a daily because daily shows a little bit more. So it dropped from $125. It's been consolidating in around the $80 and $90 range, right? It's putting in a triangle kind of. So I expect this, unless the markets really take a turn higher, all right? I expect this to go lower, all right? So I expect this to drop back down into the 40s, not right away, but eventually first, it'll drop into the, mid 70s and then into the mid 60s and then down into the mid 40s, okay? That's assuming technology continues to sell off. If Trump stops with the tariff war and all of a sudden everything goes back to lovey-dovey and markets go crazy again, then obviously this is going to go higher, but I don't think it's going to go above 100. If it does, it's going to take a lot of work to get above 100. It'll probably come back down lower, so we'll see what happens in the markets. All right, guys, fuck, I really want to talk about more things, but this TradingView app only gives me 20 minutes per video, so maybe I'll make another video. Cheers to this one. Thank you so much. I hope you like it. If you do, please hit the like and subscribe button. Take care, guys. Enjoy your day.